little bit about the Cavs and plenty about the Browns. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. And Tim, we're going to start by taking a look at some quarterbacks. And this is via Spot Track, a tweet. Shows the best quarterback taken in each of the drafts going back to 2014, as well as the first quarterback taken. So 2021, you see first quarterback taken. Lawrence, best quarterbacks, they're saying Mills and Jones. We'll see how that goes. 2020, Burrow and Herbert, Murray, and so on. So you see Mayfield taken number one overall in 2018. And they say so far, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, the best. Okay. You go down the list, and what you're starting to see is it isn't always the first quarterback taken that's the best. In fact, it usually doesn't happen. Now, 2015, you see Jameis Winston was taken first overall. They list him as the best. It's important to note Marcus Mariota, and then they didn't take another quarterback until 75. So that was a quarterback needy draft back in 2015. But when you look at that, I guess the bottom line is you have to identify your quarterback. It's not always going to be the number one pick overall. Identify somebody you like that you think fits into the system, that you identify their strengths, go get them and build your team around them.
Yeah, of course. And you look at that 2018 class, you remember even until the morning of the draft, there was a chance it was going to be Sam Darnold or, Josh Rosen was even considered a possibility. So with Baker, at least the Browns have, when healthy, a pretty good starting quarterback. I'm not saying he's elite right now. I think he's a guy that needs good weapons and good protection to really maximize him. But there's no question Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have been the best two quarterbacks in that draft class. I mean, both are studs. Josh Allen's still playing right now. He was fantastic against the Patriots on Saturday night. And when I look at what Baker's done for the Browns, I know he's not elite, but all things considered, when you look at those quarterbacks from that class going into the draft, there's always inherent risk with quarterback, but I think with Mayfield, you saw a guy that at his baseline, at his floor, it is as safe as any quarterback in that draft. And when you win one game in 2 years, safe is not a bad thing to go. I mean, would you have wanted a guy with a higher ceiling? Sure. But considering the instability in the franchise, even that year they fired Hugh Jackson, Mayfield didn't have a coach for consecutive seasons until Kevin Stefanski this past season. So you don't know what that would have done to the trajectories of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who needed infrastructure, who needed consistency to become the guys that they are right now. And with Mayfield, safe guy who's, despite all the changes around him, all the instability, still been able to, at the very minimum, be solid.
And the flip side of it is, who's to say what Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson would be if they were in the Browns system? The one thing I will say, the Ravens did a nice job of building a system around Lamar Jackson. You could not bring Lamar Jackson in and have him run, a standard, quote unquote, West Coast, however you want to describe it, offense. You have to tailor it around his skill set. And Greg Roman and John Harbaugh and the Ravens have done that. Where I'm going with that is the Browns have to get back to tailoring the offense around Baker Mayfield. If Baker Mayfield is going to be your quarterback, you darn well better play to his strengths. I thought Kevin Stefanski did a great job of that in 2020. And I think they got away from that. You were asking him to do some things that, he just didn't do very well.
Yeah, and I think part of it is also, not just scheme, but also the guys around him. And there's always the saying, football's not always about X's and O's. It's about the Jimmies and Joes. And they didn't have necessarily the guys to throw the ball to. I mean, you look at what Josh Allen has in Buffalo. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is one of the best receivers in football. Dawson Knox had a great playoff game. And in Baltimore, you got that tremendous running back stable when healthy. You got Mark Andrews, who's as good as any tight end in football. Baker just doesn't have that kind of help around him at receiver. He's got a great running game to support him, but when you ask him to throw it, and we saw it all season, they had receivers who struggled to get open against man coverage. And with a line that was banged up, when every 10th of a second in the NFL counts, just that little bit of extra time that Mayfield normally has when, all those pieces at tackle are healthy, he didn't have that. And I think, over time, the cumulative effect of the injuries, the problems at receiver, and the health of the offensive line, I also feel like that kind of tied one hand behind the back of Kevin Stefanski, because everything just limited the offense and it just became kind of a broken product.
That's fair. There were certainly limitations based on what was available, but you got to find a way to play to your quarterback strengths. So as I am watching the San Francisco 49ers upset the Dallas Cowboys yesterday, the thought kind of popped into my head. So Jimmy Garoppolo is 33-14. 33-14 as a starter. And the 49ers looked at him last year and said, he's okay, but you know what? We really, if we're going to be what we want to be, which is Super Bowl champs, we need better. So they went out and they gave up 2 first-round picks and a 3rd-round pick to move up 6 spots to take a quarterback, 3rd overall in Trey Lance. And then they didn't play Trey Lance at all. They played Jimmy Garoppolo, who goes out and has been banged up some of the year, but he wins a playoff game for them. The bottom line is you never give up looking for an upgrade at quarterback. Unless you have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, or one of the ultra elites, you should always be looking to upgrade the quarterback position because it's that important.
No question about it. And I mean, I don't know what kind of options are realistic for the Browns in this offseason. I don't know if there's a trade where they can get Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, or Deshaun Watson. I don't know if that's going to happen. There's a bunch of fans on Twitter that want to take Derek Carr from the Raiders. And after what happened with the Raiders and all the stuff that happened, and Derek Carr still leads into the playoffs, and then they're one play away from tying that game in Cincinnati. No way. There is no possibility in my mind Las Vegas moves on from Derek Carr unless there is something else going on in the works, if they just decide they want to start fresh with somebody else or whatever. But when it comes to Garoppolo, I look at, him and Baker in a very similar way. Obviously, Garoppolo's older. He's won a lot more games. I do think he's a little better, but I also look at it in the lens of who he's got to work with. He's got 2 of the best playmakers in football. George Kittle, you can argue, is as good a tight end as there is in the NFL. He's an absolute walking mismatch. That's a term I absolutely love using when I'm talking about skill players, but he really is. He's big, he's fast, he makes incredible plays. And then we saw Deebo Samuel just absolutely erupt and turn into a guy who can catch the ball, score touchdowns, and you can even put him in the backfield and he can go for touchdowns. When you have 2 elite weapons like that, it makes any quarterback better. And can't forget also in that 4th quarter that Garoppolo didn't quite make the plays needed to take the game out of the hands of the Cowboys and out of his defense, where a quarterback draw with 15 seconds left isn't what's needed to get you the win. A couple first downs gets the job done or whatever, and all those things would bode well for San Francisco if that happened, but he didn't close the game out. The Dallas has kind of wasted away that opportunity, with penalties, with poor execution late. But, I mean, Garoppolo did his part. He played very well early. I will give him a lot of credit for that. But I see in that game, I saw some of the issues that you see with Baker, just not executing as crisply as you need to in the 4th quarter. And if the Browns were to do that, I could understand it. You have some competition there, but I think it's more lateral than most people think.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge upgrade. And initially, I was not somebody that was into Jimmy Garoppolo. That would have been a guy I would have passed on. The more I watch him play in the playoffs, though, he seems to have the ability to make plays. The one thing we keep saying about Baker Mayfield is, when's he going to lead a 4th quarter comeback? When's he going to – well, Jimmy Garoppolo's doing that. Derek Carr's doing that. So I guess what I'm looking at is I am intrigued by quarterbacks that can do it in the 4th quarter. And so far, Baker Mayfield hasn't been able to do that. I'm not saying you move on from him, but there are things that you need to see from him late in games. If you're going to be a playoff team, he's got to lead, ball in his hand late in the game. He's got to go win the game, and he hadn't been able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I think that's got to be part of his approach to the offseason is what does he have to do better in the fourth quarter? How does he execute in those situations, when all the pressure in the world's on him? And I mean, there were about, I think, 4 or 5 times where, the ball's in his hands in the final minutes with a chance to win. And really only one time can you say it wasn't his fault that he didn't get the job done. And that was against Pittsburgh with the Jarvis Landry fumble and then the drops at the end on the 3rd and 4th down that put the game in the way and gave the win to the Steelers. But, the quarterback's got to be able to find a way to get it done. And I think that it seems mental at this point with Baker that, he struggled so many times in those situations that maybe something mentally with him and his approach in those situations has to change. And that's something that I think that has to be worked on the offseason. He needs to get with a coach, a quarterback coach or whatever, who can work with him on these things, figure out what he's seeing, how to make sure that when everything's on the line, he simplifies and just does the right, simple things to get the job done, to move the football, keep the chains moving. He doesn't need to be Superman in the fourth quarter. He just needs to be a guy who just does his job and gives everyone else a chance to make their own plays. And it's just part of the growth process, but it's something clearly he has to work on this offseason as much as anything else.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus 3 reasons Baker Mayfield should stay as the Browns' starting quarterback. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE, a snowy Monday afternoon. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one from Ron Byer, and it revolves around the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns.
Dave, I hope all Browns fans are in agreement. We cannot just snap our fingers and a superstar quarterback will appear. So with the Browns roster we have now and a few additional pickups at wide receiver and additional linemen, both on offensive and defensive sides, I believe a very good quarterback should be sufficient. If that's a healthy Baker Mayfield, great. But also, most importantly, we need a backup quarterback who the Browns coaching staff has total confidence in starting day one. So in case Baker Mayfield re-injures himself or does not play up to expectation, a change at quarterback can be made at the appropriate time without hesitation and with total confidence. The drama of last year can never happen again.
And again, Ron Byer, a frequent voicemail contributor. Ron, I appreciate it very much. Tim Bielik, when we talk about the Browns quarterback situation, I don't think there was any lack of faith in Case Keenum. I honestly don't. I just think the mindset is Baker Mayfield is our quarterback. Our quarterback is our quarterback. If he can go out there, he's going to play. Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I think, Baker, obviously, the way they kept putting him out there, you saw that at times he still had the ability to get the job done. And, I keep thinking in that Cincinnati game, Keenum had some good moments, but then he also had some bad moments. I mean, he had that fumble that turned into a touchdown. He had that interception at the end zone right at the end of the first half, and that's against pretty much the Bengals' backup defense. And I mean, Keenum is a decent backup quarterback, but I don't think he's a guy who's going to threaten for his starting job. And I think that's, for what they're paying him at $6 million, I think that's a fair price. But I think with Baker, the issue for me, to me this year has always been, how he's had to adjust his mechanics with the shoulder harness on the left side, because he had to fiddle with that all season. He never really regained that, especially after the Arizona game. When he had the shoulder pop out again, when the humerus bone in there was broken. It was just the accumulation of injuries, the fact that he was never really healthy after the first half of that Houston game. I know quarterbacks take a lot of hits, they get hurt, but it seems like Mayfield gets affected by them more because, he just doesn't have the size that, the bigger quarterbacks have. And that's not a knock on him. That's just, his body type and how that is. So I think it's just, he had to figure out a way to adjust, and he never really did adjust to, his physical limitations with the harness and the torn labrum, and then adding in all those lower body injuries.
I am not of the mindset to bring in a quarterback to compete with Baker Mayfield. I think quarterback competitions, you just don't see them with teams that expect to go to the playoffs and go far in the playoffs. I know you can tell me there's this team and that team, but by and large, if you have a quarterback issue that you're sorting through, trying to decide it doesn't bode well for your season, at least in my mind. Good teams know who their quarterback is, so I'm not as interested in bringing somebody in to compete with Baker Mayfield. I don't think he's the type of guy that would respond really well to that either.
No question. I mean, we've seen, he could be an emotional player. I mean, he feeds off energy, both positive and negative. And obviously that has its drawbacks at the quarterback position, when usually you want a guy who's more calm, just more relaxed out there. Maybe that kind of plays into the fourth quarter things as a whole. But I mean, you also got to worry about the team aspect. I'm not saying they should make a move from Baker. I don't think they should, largely because I don't think any of the options out there are realistic. Plus, I think he's way better than we saw this entire season. And I'm a big believer that the injury to the left shoulder, the fact that he couldn't have proper mechanics, and the fact that everything broke down around him as well, played a large role in that. We know Baker's not Aaron Rodgers. We know he's not Tom Brady. So with 95% of quarterbacks around the NFL, he needs help to get things done. And especially when he's not 100%, when he's, say, about 70%, he needed somebody to step up. He needed, a receiver to really just kind of force his way open, just force feed him the ball and get him a ton of, yards after the catch. That never happened all season. The protection really was never consistent the entire season. When a quarterback's even when a quarterback's healthy, he needs help. When he's banged up, he has to have more. And he basically had none this season, I don't think.
Fair enough. All right. So these are three reasons that Baker Mayfield should stay, according to Dog Pound Daily. So the first is the injury. The second, contract is affordable. And the third is he's earned it. I guess I get the rationale there. As far as earning it, you got to earn everything every year in the NFL. So he played well. They won a playoff game. He didn't play well enough this year.
Yeah, I'm on board with you with that. I mean, I don't think anybody in that offense outside of Nick Chubb and the interior offensive lineman played well this year. So I think that plays into it. I would almost reverse it, because I still say the injury plays a huge role in it. But we've talked about that, so I'll kind of talk about the contract. I mean, $18 million for a quarterback, that's nothing. We know the cap's going to skyrocket this year, get back to normal. Then, when the Amazon deal kicks in, that's going to go up even higher. So you're talking about a skyrocketing cap with a roster and a quarterback room that's affordable right now. And let's not forget, they can still franchise Baker Mayfield for a sixth season if he plays well enough, but they still can't come to an agreement on a long-term deal. I just think the big reason I think it's worth keeping Baker around is I just don't see an option that you're going to be able to get for sure that's better than him. You know, I talked about Derek Carr. Kirk Cousins, I think, is a lateral move, and he's a guy I think who's been boosted by, you know, having Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson to throw the football to, and I think that's really helped him. So if you're going to make this change for a quarterback, you have to almost know for a fact that the guy you're getting is better, and I just don't see that option available to them, at least not one that, you know, is realistic, one that can happen, you know, without giving up way too much in a trade for somebody.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to know if you're moving on from Baker Mayfield, I want to know what you're moving on to. All right, so this is a tweet: percentage of dropbacks that result in a sack. This is from Seth Walder, from ESPN, an analytics guy. So the lowest percentage of quarterback pressures result in a sack this year: Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. Huh. Surprise, surprise. Highest: Baker Mayfield, Zach Wilson, and Joe Burrow. So the thing that's concerning with Mayfield having such a high percentage of dropbacks that relate or that result in sacks is that the offensive line has been pretty good. Now, I know Jedrick Wills was banged up. I know Conklin was out, but you're still dealing with one of the top NFL offensive lines. And to give up that many sacks, something's not right with your quarterback. He's not seeing the field. He's not confident. He's not confident in what he's seeing. There's a number of things.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, 2021 Baker was a lot like 2019 Baker, indecisive. You know, he couldn't quite, you know, pull the trigger when he wanted to. I mean, that third down against Pittsburgh that we've seen in so many screenshots where the guy in the slot's wide open on a short curl for a first down and Baker just doesn't throw it to him. And I think, you know, you're pretty much bang on about the confidence. And I think, you know, just him being banged up, you know, the negative performances he had, they took a toll on him. I think it's pretty obvious, you know, all that stuff kind of swelled up. There really nothing had gone right for him the entire season. And, you know, we still got to remember he's still young in NFL terms. That's only his fourth season in the league. So in a way, he's still figuring this out. And confidence matters so much for younger players who are still in some ways figuring things out. So I think he just needs to find that swagger again. He needs to get healthy, and he really needs to work on his game in the offseason. If he can do that and the Browns can help him out, you know, by getting him receivers, by Jedrick Wilson, Jack Conklin getting healthy, getting some insurance at one of the tackle positions, they should be able to get 2020 Baker. I think that's a realistic expectation, is if those pieces around him are better, then you get 2020 Baker, the guy we saw, you know, win a playoff game in Pittsburgh and play pretty well in Kansas City in that divisional game.
Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, some interesting analytics-driven information about Greg Newsome and how well he played. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back, talking Browns and talking some defense. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Thanks for buying a fishing license. I want you to picture all the great things this simple purchase does. Like building public boat ramps, keeping local waters clean, and maintaining a healthy fish population.
What's Mom doing?
When you buy a fishing license, you do a lot. every dollar protects and maintains your local waterways for future generations to enjoy. Visit takemefishing.org.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's take a look at this tweet. Greg Newsome, Browns rookie cornerback, and just how good he was. 20-plus yard targets, 10 of them. Only allowed 3 catches, no touchdowns, 4 forced incompletions. One of the reasons that Greg Newsome showed up on Pro Football Focus's all-rookie team as one of the top cornerbacks. And Tim Bielik, when you look at that, I think the thing that was most impressive for me about Greg Newsome, they didn't throw at him a whole lot. That's the way you can tell a guy is playing well, especially a rookie, when the quarterbacks and the offensive coordinators think enough of him that they don't try to pick on him.
Yeah, and I mean, that was kind of the scouting report out of him from Northwestern is, teams weren't eager to challenge him because they just couldn't get, things completed. And it's not surprising to see the numbers stack up that well for Newsome. I thought he was tremendous this season. I know he didn't really get any takeaways going, but, when you're just locking down one part of the field, that's all you need to do. Turnovers are a bonus. Obviously, they're huge momentum changers, and I'm sure that will come over time. But he showed that, he could be a very good corner in this league. It looked like Andrew Berry, 1 year in, it pretty much did a great job with this pick, especially getting a quality corner to fall into his lap at 26. Put him with Denzel Ward, who should be in Cleveland long-term. Greedy Williams, who I thought, had some very good moments this season. All of a sudden, the Browns have a really good 1-2-3 corner combination that should help them, going forward, especially, when you got to play the Bengals now twice a year and those elite receivers.
All right, so this is, according to Dog Pound Daily, 5 players to be fired up for 2022. Jacob Phillips, that's a linebacker. A.J. Green in the secondary. Grant Delpit, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Who are those you most excited about, and who are you thinking, boy, they really need to step it up a little bit, maybe?
I think stepping up kind of goes to Jacob Phillips. I thought, he came in, off his injury. I don't think most people expected he was going to play this year, but I thought he showed some flashes. I just think he needs to get more consistency. And I think that comes with health, that comes with reps, playing alongside a guy like JOK. We saw just how tremendous and special he can be at that position. And as far as, who I'm eager to see kind of continue to develop, it's those top 3 guys. I mean, we all know what JOK is. We all know what kind of playmaker he is. I thought Donovan Peoples-Jones, he was inconsistent at times with drops, but the good was really, really good. And there's a lot to absolutely love about his game. And Grant Delpit, it was good for, I think, the Browns, obviously, and for, anybody who follows the team just to see him perform the way he did coming off the Achilles. He looked like himself, and I think that's the biggest thing. He was a playmaker. He got an interception. I think he might have picked off a 2-point pass. He's all over the place doing a lot of the fun things that you expect a guy like Delpit to do. He looked like the guy from LSU, and I think, and especially coming out of the torn Achilles, that can only bode well for him as he gets further away from that injury.
Yeah, the defensive side of the ball, especially some of the young guys that we've talked about, JOK, you mentioned Delpit, a couple of the younger defensive linemen that have been rotating in. They've done a nice job. So it'll be very interesting to see how they can take that next step as far as a unit goes, because there are some really good pieces there. I agree with you.
No question about it. I mean, this season's going to come down to just Andrew Berry kind of seeing if he can do for the offense what he did for the defense, because we saw just how aggressive they were in overhauling that side of the football in the offseason, and they became one of the better defenses in football. So there's reason to believe, if you're a Browns fan, that he can get this turnaround on that side of the football. I think it just comes down to him finding some good receivers, maybe another tight end or whatever, line depth, and then possibly whatever happens at quarterback. I don't know, but there's no reason to think that he can't get the job done this offseason to kind of get those things fixed more to a better way.
All right, 3 best players Browns must re-sign in free agency. This is according to clutchpoints.com. So they say Jadeveon Clowney 1, David Njoku 2, Malik McDowell 3. What are your thoughts? And I'm all in on Clowney. I hope they find a way to keep him here.
You and me both. I mean, it's clear just how great Garrett and Kalani were. I thought, they complemented each other very well. And I think playing alongside Myles Garrett helped unlock Jadeveon Clowney's potential. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to get a lot of sacks, but as an edge center, as a run defender from that defensive end spot, he was about as good as you could ask for. And he played a big role in why the Browns had one of the better run defenses in the league. And I mean, he's going to cost a little more money, but again, with the way the salary cap's going up, that's a move I think the Browns can afford to make. Keep him for 3 more years, especially if he stays healthy. He's really, really good and he's a great fit for this defense. And Njoku as well at that second spot is a good decision, is a good one. He really, had some moments. I thought he was underutilized. The game against the Chargers shows you what he can do when he's involved more in the offense. They have to figure a way to make him a bigger part of the offense if they keep him around in 2022. Malik McDowell as well, especially in that first game against the Chiefs, he was tremendous. I think he was kind of up and down, but then again, this was really his first NFL season, and there were a lot of things to like about the way he played. So there's plenty of reason to keep all 3 guys around. I think if you obviously have to prioritize, that's a good order of which to prioritize potential re-signings.
Tim Bielik from cleveland.com, the Plain Dealer, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out on the other side of the break. Players that need bounce-back years in 2022 for the Browns. We'll also take a look at some of the names of the rookie wide receivers the Browns might be looking at. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns football here on Sports4CLE. So 3 Browns who need bounce-back seasons in 2022, and this is according to BrownsNation.com. Number 1, Baker Mayfield. Number 2, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Number 3, the left tackle, Jedrick Wills. So, Tim Bielik, when you look at that, Baker Mayfield, first and foremost, that goes without saying. I think people got a little carried away with Donovan Peoples-Jones. This is a guy that was a 6th-round pick. He's a developmental guy, so I think he does have the upside, but I don't think he was ever brought in to be the number 1 receiver this early in his career, or even the number 2 receiver.
No, I think the idea of saying he needs a bounce back is a little strong. I think maybe the way he performed in training camp was, everybody kind of got those expectations way up when you kind of had to realize that he's still developing. This is a season where he has to take another step. I did think he took that step. I thought he became a much better player. You know, he showed more nuance in his game. I thought he was obviously better this year, but I just didn't think he was ready to be number one or number two. I think it was pretty clear after a few weeks that he definitely is better, but he's not ready to be a number one. Maybe with another offseason he can be, but you saw the inconsistencies. There's still some rawness to his game that needs to be sharpened out over the offseason. But in my mind, that's not necessarily what I would call a bounce back for what he needs for 2022. It just needs to be continued improvement. For Baker and Jedrick Wills, I can definitely agree with those two, not so much on DPJ.
The thing that I'm curious with Jedrick Wills is how much of his struggles were because of that ankle. You know, he hurt it early. They tried to have him play through it. And, you know, for a young player, you know, I get you want to be there for your teammates and you want to play, but a young guy that's working on technique at left tackle, you know, he's only 1 year into playing left tackle. This was really the first time where he got extended practice time at left tackle because last year was virtual. I wonder, much like with Baker, I wonder if they regret having him try to fight through that early because he probably developed some bad habits.
Yeah, no question about it. When you're limited, you don't play the way you want to play because you have to compensate naturally for whatever is ailing you. And I mean, we saw in those games after when he tried to play through the ankle injury, he would always leave, you know, in the second half, wouldn't come back. And I think maybe wonder if this is a lesson to the coaches that maybe they need to be more conservative, you know, when guys are injured. We saw that in training camp where they would sit guys. They were not afraid to rest players who had like little soft tissue injuries or whatever. They were conservative with them, but in the regular season, that wasn't the case. I mean, Baker ideally should have been shut down after the Arizona game, you know, just for the rest of the season. And then you could have played with Case Keenum. You probably would have had a similar record. You know, you wouldn't have had the same questions with Baker. It would change the narrative completely if he didn't have those last 11 games, you know, of all those problems that showed up. And I think with Jedrick Wills, same kind of thing, but to a lesser extent. And that ankle injury, you know, he had in Kansas City, I think obviously threw him off course. For a young player, you need to have momentum. He never got that momentum.
All right, let's take a look at some of the top wide receivers that are available in this upcoming draft. And tell me who you might think the Browns have an interest in. I know you're familiar with a couple of them. Drake London intrigues me just because he's 6'5". There's a couple of Buckeyes that I know that you are familiar with, and a former Buckeye. Of course, Williams tore his ACL in the national championship game. When you look at these guys, who pops out at you? Who do you think fits in and makes Baker Mayfield better, or whomever the quarterback is of the Browns better day one?
I think number one's got to be Garrett Wilson. I mean, there's really not much I don't think he can do on the football field. He's fast. He gets separation. He's absolutely elite with the ball in his hands. I've raved before about his otherworldly body control, whether it's airborne going to make a catch or even adjusting his body while his feet are on the ground. Those different things make him absolutely special. And I mean, we've seen so many times in the NFL, you don't need to be a big receiver to really have an impact on a game. Now, my number two guy is actually not in that list. I like Treylon Burks from Arkansas. He's a guy that, I mean, I've talked about him before. I call him the walking mismatch, 6'3", 225. He's fast. The more I watch of Treylon Burks, the more I love Treylon Burks as a prospect, especially because he's the type of guy that everybody, all these defenses in the SEC with their highly talented players knew he was going to be targeted. They still couldn't stop him. He's too big for most corners. He's too fast for most linebackers and safeties. And he has very good hands. So there's a lot to like about that. Drake London, I like at number 3. Size is amazing. He moves better than a guy who should at 6'5", 210. He's coming off an injury, which concerns me. And the injury to Jameson Williams is when I kind of drop in the 4. If he had tore his ACL or whatever, 3 months earlier after a hot start, maybe this is a different situation. But I think he almost be better served going to a team, at least right now, that can afford to wait on him. I don't think the Browns can afford to wait on a receiver because, I mean, again, this is January. You're talking about 9 months, about 9 months or so to heal from a torn ACL. That puts you into October with no training camp. And the Browns need a guy who can help out immediately at receiver. which is unfortunate for Williams because, I mean, he showed just how special he is this season, just with game-breaking speed, you know, the ability to even work underneath and make things happen. Needs to get a little stronger, but I think that comes with age and physical maturity.
All right, real quick before I let you go, Darius Garland named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week for the Cavs. And I know you covered the Cavs some. When you look at this team, can they sustain how well they're playing, and what is the most impressive thing about what you have seen with the Cavs? And I know you were covering them a little bit while Chris Fedor was out. So when you look at the Cavs, most impressive thing, can they sustain the way they're playing?
I think they can, and it's because of the way they play defense. I mean, when you have two incredible rim protectors in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, you can certainly sustain that production on the floor. And as long as you can defend in the NBA, you got a shot. And I mean, Darius, I think, deserved that award. I mean, he played out of his mind in the last 3 games of the road trip. He had the triple-double in Utah. He was outstanding in San Antonio, 32 points, 8 assists. He had a great fourth quarter in that game. And then Saturday, I thought, was the biggest, the most impressive thing to me. I mean, the Cavs were down by 18 in that third quarter. You know, I think everybody would have understood if, the team packed it in. It would have been disappointing, obviously, to lose that game. But, 6 games and 9 nights, they're on the road. It's the end of a long road trip. You're in a hostile environment against a team that's just got more energy. If they had lost that game, it would have been understandable. But instead, they just refused to back down, and they found a way to win the game. Darius Garland put the team on his back in that third quarter, and they just found a way to get it done. And I was in that building, obviously, those last 2 possessions when he set up Evan Mobley for that alley-oop and marking him for that 3. It was loud there. I mean, to go into that environment, I know the Thunder are on a really good team, but they play very hard. So for the Cavs to go in there and do what they did to close that game out and win it on the road, to go 5-1 on the road trip, pretty impressive. So there's no reason to think they can't sustain this, especially if they pick up a piece at the deadline to make them a deeper team.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Tim, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
All right, Tim Bielik, make sure you read them, pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll take a look at how much salary cap room the Browns have left this year. They can roll it into next year. Hayden Grove will join us. He's also with the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Sports4CLE. Talking Browns when we return. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns football. Let's take a look at this tweet from Field Yates. This is regarding unused salary cap in 2021. And when you look at the Browns, they have 10.5, almost 10.6 million in unused cap. The reason this is important, they can roll that and kind of expand it onto next year's salary cap. So you get to use that money next year as well. Let's welcome in Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. And Hayden, we know the Browns, Andrew Berry and those guys have done a really good job adding pieces and maintaining the cap flexibility. That goes to show you there are some areas that they can definitely use that additional money on coming up next year.
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason that they brought these guys in, is to have, that the ability to, to have smarts in the cap room and to have smarts in the salary and what they want to do. And they're very cognizant of what they want to do with the money. So I think the Browns with Andrew Berry, I think the Browns with, that whole front office are super aware of, the money situations that they're dealing with, and they're pretty smart with that money, and they have been thus far. So I expect them to be smart with it again, maybe not mega deals, but, smart team-friendly deals. And maybe they can, pony up a little bit of money for Jadeveon Clowney or some other guys that potentially may need, a little bit of a boost in terms of money to stay in Cleveland.
All right, let's take a look at some free agent wide receivers. We're going to try to spend some of that money that they have left over on the salary cap. The names that you look at here, there's some big names. You can go off the board if you want as well. I don't think an Odell. Every time I see Odell Beckham Jr. on this list, I laugh because there's no way Odell Beckham Jr. is coming back. Who is intriguing on this list that you think might fit in? They're not going to spend money on like a Chris Godwin. I don't think he's coming here either. But is there anybody on that list that you're intrigued with? Or if you want to go off that list, give me the name of somebody that you think might fit in with the Browns as a free agent wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Devontae Adams is certainly a name that everybody would want on the Cleveland Browns. I mean, he's probably the best receiver in football at this point, but that's just not going to happen. Odell Beckham Jr. also is not going to happen. I've always loved Emmanuel Sanders. I think he can be a really effective piece for not a lot of money. I've always been a huge fan of him, but I don't think the Browns are going to spend a lot of money on a wide receiver. I don't think that's where they want to go. I don't think that's what they want to do. Maybe they would draft 2 or 3. Maybe they trade for one, but I don't foresee them necessarily spending a lot of money. So maybe some of the names towards the bottom of that list, kind of maybe on a 1 or 2 year deal, like a guy like Emmanuel Sanders or, Christian Kirk, somebody like that. But I don't foresee them going top line free agent wide receiver. I see them kind of, below the surface and getting a guy maybe on a 1 or 2 year deal for not too much money.
All right. So a guy that is available that, you could talk about via trade is Calvin Ridley. So he only played 5 games this year, was dealing with personal reasons with the Atlanta Falcons. Set to make $11 million in base salary in 2022, according to Spot Rack. Now he's a bona fide number 1 after, they lost Julio Jones. He was kind of living in that realm for a while. Could you see the Browns potentially trying to trade for him rather? I mean, if you do that, you could switch out the Jarvis Landry money and make the money work. There's a number of things they can do. Is Calvin Ridley somebody you think they look at that way?
Yeah, I like it. That's what I kind of said with the trade thing. I mean, I think Calvin Ridley needs a new start. I think Cleveland needs a big-time wide receiver, not a big-time wide receiver, but a very good, talented wide receiver. And I think Calvin Ridley is that. I could certainly see them trying to trade something for him. I mean, they have some pieces that, other teams could use, and they have some, salary cap situations and salaries that other teams could kind of use to dangle as well. So it's definitely interesting, and I can't wait to see what they do in regards to bringing in receivers, because they certainly are going to. It's a matter of whether it's the draft, whether it's through free agency, whether it's through trades. I think Calvin Ridley is a really interesting target, and a guy that I definitely would want to keep an eye on going forward.
So do you think they do both? Do you think they draft 1 or 2 wide receivers and also try to bring in a veteran? We mentioned Emmanuel Sanders when we were looking at the list. That's a guy that played and had some success in Kyle Shanahan's offense. So the fit is kind of important here. because you don't want another issue where the wide receiver that you bring in is not happy. Get somebody who knows what is going to be asked of him and required of him in this system.
Yeah, certainly. That's a big problem. Kevin Stefanski's offense is not one that wide receivers love to play in. We've seen it with Stephon Diggs. We've seen it with Odell Beckham Jr. now. I could certainly see that being an issue when a team is when the Browns are trying to bring in a wide receiver. So that's something they're going to have to look at. They definitely are going to have to draft at least 2 wide receivers, I think, because when you look at it, Hollywood Higgins isn't coming back. There's a chance that Jarvis Landry doesn't come back, if they want to keep that salary, salary cap hit lower. You got to look at DPJ is maybe a guy. Anthony Schwartz is maybe a guy, and that's about it. Other than, I can't even really think off the top of my head of other guys that are going to be there. It just doesn't seem like there's a lot going on in a lot of the wide receiver room. So they're going to need to bring in 2 in the draft. They're probably going to need to bring 1 in free agency and maybe 1 more via trade. It's a room that needs a desperate overhaul, especially with Odell gone and Jarvis potentially gone. I think that obviously Jarvis is a huge fit in the locker room and is a great piece for them, but is he worth the money? Does he want a new start himself with Odell gone and, with the offense kind of where it is right now? It's a massive need. I think by far their biggest need this season.
Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we go to social media, take a look at Joe Thomas, former Brown, having a little fun with the Steelers and their playoff game against the Chiefs. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at casaforchildren.org.
We continue talking Browns and football on this snowy Sunday. Thanks for staying with us here on Sports for CLE. So yesterday, during the Steelers-Chiefs game, Joe Thomas and Brett Kiesel, former Steelers defensive lineman, got into a little bit of a Twitter match. Let's take a look at the tweet. This is from BR Gridiron. And you see, Steelers, congratulations on your playoff participation trophy. Kiesel with, that's a great comeback. Did you ever get one of those? No. Let's welcome back in Hayden Grove. And Hayden, love Joe Thomas, but man, that is a great response by Brett Kiesel to the question.
Yeah, poor Joe. Joe is all Browns all the time, and he's beloved here in Northeast Ohio, but he deserved one, man. He deserved a participation trophy. He played 10,000 snaps in a row and just gave everything to this town, and he never got in. So I hate it for him, but Brett Kiesel's right. He never got one. So Joe, keep talking your smack. I like it. Definitely always, be the mayor of Brownstown. I love that. But, expect responses like Brett Kiesel's, because he's right. Like Joe never got one. And it's sad, unfortunate.
Yeah, Joe deserved a lot more than that. He deserved a medal for playing on as many bad Browns teams as he played on. But again, points to Brett Kiesel for the answer. All right, this is kind of interesting. Travis Kelce, Cleveland Heights native. We share the same hometown, Travis Kelce and I. I'm from Cleveland Heights, so I have a little bit of fondness for him. He stays connected to Cleveland Heights, especially the high school football team there. He also played basketball for the Tigers. This one's kind of interesting. He was interviewed by his mom after the Chiefs-Steelers game. Let's take a look at that interview.
We'll go first to Donna Kelce.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes, it's your mom.
What's up, Mom? I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, I know. I actually made it at a disappointing Tampa game. This was an elation to see you get a touchdown in a playoff game. I mean, oh my gosh, how good did that feel? How good did that feel after all these years?
Oh, man, to finally throw a touchdown, like I used to tell my mom when I was like 5 years old, I was going to eventually throw a touchdown in the National Football League. I finally got it done. It only took me 9 years. That's a good question, though, Mom.
Yeah, that's awesome. It was so fun, and that's what makes sports so great, because you can be depressed in the morning and elated in the evening. So
there you go. Glad I could put a smile on your face. Love you, Mom.
Yeah, you too. Love you too.
She's the best, man.
All right, and Hayden, he played quarterback at Cleveland Heights as well. So important to note that. Just a good dude, happy for him. Wish he was a Brown.
He will be one day. I don't have any doubt about that. After his contract's up in KC or whatever, I have no doubt that he'll find his way to Cleveland. I think he desperately wants to be a part of it. Grew up a big Browns fan, obviously a huge Cavs Guardians guy, and a great representative of Cleveland for sure. Too bad he's not doing it here. It would be great to see him in brown and orange. I think he will end up at brown and orange at some point. I would bet a lot of money on that. But for the time being, great to see him, balling on a big stage. And that was awesome. That's kind of the dream come true to have your mom interview you on after a playoff win. So good for Donna Kelce and good for the entire Kelce family. I know that obviously she was talking about the tough loss for her other brother, Jason. Or his other brother, Jason, with the Eagles. But hey, that's sports, as she said.
Yeah. And it's good for the Chiefs for making that happen. That's an awesome thing. Hayden Grove, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much. Always appreciate it.
Thank you. Anytime. You let me know.
All right. Hayden Grove, make sure you read him, Pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. That'll do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com, Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. That is tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Sports4CLE. We will see you then. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe.